in the way of pilgrims, we can sing the song written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and it is indicative of what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam, that susukam kartamavyam. It's directly experienced when we perform the activities of bhakti. You don't need a certificate. Of course, you can get one. But the Bhagavatam says, Bhakti parishanu bhavo viraktiranyata traisha trika ekakala. Prapadya manasya natashata sus tusti pushti shud apayonugasam. And that is that just as when you eat a delicious meal when you're hungry, you feel nourished, you feel satisfied, and your hunger diminishes with every morsel that you consume. And in a similar way, when one performs Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, then there's a natural stimulation of bhakti, a feeling of devotion to God, which is very natural because it's there, dormant in the heart of every living being, even a kitten or a salamander or even a mongoose. Mongoose. What's the plural of a mongoose? Of mongoose?
Two mongoose. Another mongoose.
Mongooses. In the heart of mongooses, there's love, although it's for mostly for their offspring. And when we are able to come to the holy places, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in this song that he wrote, there's a deeper feeling because we, as one of the devotees said last night or the night before, there's a realization, this actually took place here. And it feels as if we're seeing the pastime in front of our eyes. Just as Valmiki, after he had chanted the name of Ram for so many centuries, he was empowered to see the pastimes directly in front of him. That's why he was able to write the Ramayana, as if they was happening in the same room. And Prabhupada writes about chanting the holy name of the Lord that everything's revealed. Name, form, quality, pastimes of the Lord, they're all there within the name. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote this song rejoicing in the different activities of bhakti. Would you like to hear what some of them are? Yes. And you tell me if you can relate to any of these. Okay? The dust of the lotus feet of pure devotees. Enthusiastic devotional service. So far anything? Nothing? And service to the pure devotees of the highest order are the roots of the creeper of devotion. Does that resonate? Yes. Page 282. Resonates. How about the holy days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami are the mother of devotion for those devotees who respect them? Let the holy places of Krishna's pastimes be my places of worship and bless me. So these are places of worship. And Padasevanam means that you walk to them. And just by walking to those places and honoring them by being there, sitting there, taking an airplane ride at 700 miles an hour and walking through duty-free shops on the way there. This is austerity to come to these places, but it leaves an indelible mark within one's heart. If you come to the Lord's Dham and you walk around, he notices, as we find in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes about how in Kartik, as an example, if one hangs around the district of Mathura during Kartik time, even if such a person isn't a very serious devotee, and just observes the simple ceremony of offering a lamp during Kartik, then Krishna considers, oh, this person is one of mine. And so coming to the holy places, walking around and hearing about the pastimes the Lord performed, which we'll talk about here. What pastimes did Lord Chaitanya perform here, right here in this very place that we're sitting over 500 years ago? May I always visit all the holy places associated with the Leela of Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. That's something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura was very dedicated to. He went into South India and he charted all the places where Mahaprabhu had visited. And they're here, there, and everywhere. If you try it, it's hard to keep up. We did it a few years in a row in South India and tried to follow the exact path that Mahaprabhu took. It was very difficult to follow. We had to take planes, trains, automobiles, and walking in different places. And he went in many places. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura went there and he put a placard with the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all those places. It's similar with Maharaj Prataparudra. He became a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after he was inspired by seeing him and hearing from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he expended his entire treasury because he told his minions that wherever Lord Chaitanya goes, make sure before he gets there, there's a new dwelling, brand new. Make everything perfect for him. And he also marked the places that Mahaprabhu had visited as well. And this is the enthusiastic welcoming of Kṛṣṇa, or the pure devotees. In Prabhupada's time, when he traveled, it is said, and it's true from our experience, that there was always the smell of wet paint, because devotees would always hurriedly upgrade the dwelling that Prabhupada was staying in, including painting it or getting things ready so that he could be greeted properly. Everything had to be super clean. Is that something you've experienced, Vishnu-Gada Prabhu? Yeah. And maybe at the last minute it was finished. So this is one of the ways that one can express one's devotion, is visiting all the holy places associated with the Leela of Lord Chaitanya's devotees. You can call into your office and tell them that you need 3 months off. And if they ask why, you say, I would like to visit all the holy places associated with the Leela of Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. And they'll probably give you that, plus extra pay. That's what happened when Ramananda Roy had told had put in for retiring, and Prataparudra Maharaj gave him full extension, a pension, and just take off time, just be there to serve Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's actually good governance. If somebody wants to serve Lord Chaitanya, they should be given full facility. And even Krishna says, Devarshi bhutat nadrinam pitranam the king kairo nayam ranicha rajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam kato mukundam pariyashrita kartam. And the system of the universe, says the Bhāgavatam, this is Karabhajana Muni. Karabhajana Muni in the Bhāgavatam says that if your intention is, and your activities are just serve Krishna, then you don't owe anybody. You're free to go, free to move about the universe. When I hear the sound of the mridanga, do some stuff. In my heart, I always desire to join in kirtan. And just like where we were at the bus stand, aka the filthiest place on earth, and from that, people with the most pious hearts on earth came out to dance and smile and feel happiness in their hearts because they heard the holy name in the kirtan. That should be everywhere in the world. Every city should have that. The air should be rented with the sound of the holy name. And when I hear the bona fide songs describing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, my heart dances in ecstasy. Bona fide means we know it came from an acharya. Prabhupada gave us full permission to hear and chant all the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur especially. He mentioned those too. There are others. But when we're singing them, we know that they're perfectly aligned. And that was something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was meticulous about, especially through his secretary, Swarup Damodar. There were times in which people wanted to come and offer poetry to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Swarup Damodar was the gatekeeper. And although one time the devotees insisted that there's this great poet here, and he's written something, and he wants Mahaprabhu to hear it, Swarup Damodar said, no, first, after they nagged so much, he said, first you read it to me. So he read it, and Swarup Damodar detected Mayavad tinge within it, and he severely criticized the poetry and told why it was an offense. Unknown to many who heard it, they didn't catch the subtlety of it. So Prabhupada had been very careful to maintain the chastity to the great acharyas and their mood, and not deviate to singing many other things. In fact, he was strict about not adding extra mantras, making things up, or bringing in things from here, there, and everywhere. If you want to know more about it and be traumatized for a few weeks, you can read Jayadvaita Maharaj's new book. Whenever I see the transcendental Sri Vigrahas of Radha and Krishna, I am in bliss. For by taking their lordships prasad, we can conquer over the material elements. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you may know that he wrote these songs about prasadam. This is such a joyful process in Krishna consciousness, isn't it? The favorite hit song that uplifts everyone's heart is Sharira Vijayal. As soon as we hear that, we know that there's a festival going on somewhere in the other room. And he wrote more than that. He wrote, as everyone here knows, Ekadina Shanti Pure, and then there are several more. And there he labeled each song as appropriate for singing at different times during taking prasadam. Some before, some during. The devotees would break out in song, and some of the songs specifically for taking kitri, others for taking sweets, and so forth. And it's a sacred, it's prasad sevaya, serving prasad. So when we get some prasadam yesterday, when we were in front of Jagannath Mandir and we were stopping people, this group of 3 had just come from darshan, and we kicked off their shoes and they kicked off their shoes. But before we could hand them anything, they had Mahaprasad in their hand and they started giving it to us. And we were very touched by their sincerity, and we realized how much of a loving exchange it was. Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichiti bhunkte bojayate chaiva shadvidam pratilakshanam. There's 6 exchanges of love between one devotee and another. So it starts dadati pratigrinati. What's that? Giving gifts and accepting gifts. So that's part of our devotional process, to give gifts to devotees and then accept gifts from the devotees. Then, so guyam akyati prachiti means to inquire confidentially and then hear from the other, exchange what realizations. We do some of that, right? We ask for, and last night, wasn't it nice? And at the beach this morning, oh, that was something special, spontaneous. As we all stopped, and just we noticed the sun had come up, and it was, I'm trying to remember that Shakespeare thing where the flag is turned scarlet by the sun, but that there was a streak of scarlet on the ocean, and we had just read a verse about how Kurmadev, after having taken the Mandara mountain on his back and enjoyed the scratching feeling, he got sleepy. And then his exhalation and inhalation, from then on the ocean imitated his breathing. and the oceans going out and coming in. So we were seeing everything in relationship to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Then the devotees started to speak, and it was something special. Luckily, I wrote it all down. All the insights devotees had. It was as if everyone had been empowered to see Krishna in everything. And so that's loving exchanges, taking prasad, giving prasad to others. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, one day while performing devotional practices, I saw my house transformed into Goloka Vrindavan. And this is possible because when the deities are there and Tulsi's there, and you make some offering to the Lord, then you're not in an ordinary house. You're suddenly in Goloka Vrindavan. And everyone can transform their environment and feel completely transported to the spiritual world just by worshiping the deity and chanting at home. He goes on to say, when I take the Charnamrita of the deity, I see the holy Ganges waters that come from the feet of Lord Vishnu, and my bliss knows no bounds. Akali Mritaharanam Sarvavyadi Vinashanam Vishnu Parodikam Vidva Shirashadariyam Yaham. This is the mantra for taking the Charnamrit, that I take this Charnamrit to emanate from the lotus feet of the Lord, I place it on my head, and now I'm deathless. Take a little Charnamrit, no more death. Okay? All right. By seeing the Tulsi tree, my heart feels joy, and Lord Madhava Kṛṣṇa is also satisfied. Tulsi Manarani Ki. When I eat the prasad favored by Lord Chaitanya as a new life's experience, what was his favorite prasadam? Eshak Krishna Ashvadihilo Heno Shak Ashvadane Krishna Prema Aisemani Se Preme Koro Ashvadan Jada Buddhi Padi Hari Prasada Bhojana Kari Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan Hari Hari Bolo Sarvajan. That's pretty good. You take a little prasad and you overcome Jada Buddhi. What's Jada Buddhi? Well, boy, it's your brain turns to stone. You got a Jada Buddhi. Your intelligence becomes stone-like. That's what everyone is in the material world. I heard Prabhupada say the other day that man wants a stone house because it's very prestigious. So he spends his time and money building a stone house, and he moves into stone, and then his consciousness becomes stone-like because he lives in a stone house. But our consciousness, Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, because we just want to see Krishna and chant Krishna, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, then our consciousness becomes Krishna consciousness. That's the kind you want. And so Shak, Lord Chaitanya likes specific things. God likes specific things. He's a person. And he declared, this Shak has been personally tasted by Krishna. And anybody who takes it, who's in a joyful, almost spiritually intoxicated mood, anyone who takes this, they'll also achieve love of God, just by taking prasad. And Madhav has mentioned in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs about prasadam. He says that one day all the devotees came to Mother Sachi's house, including Madhavendra Puri, and she fed all the sannyasis. And then they declared that anyone today who sits and takes this prasadam here, made by Sachi Mata, they will attain in one sitting what yogis take 10,000 years to attain through all their austerities and meditation. Just by sitting here with the sadhus and taking this prasadam, you'll attain the same perfection. Better, actually. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur concludes, whosoever attains the stage of enthusiasm for these devotional practices will be supremely blissful wherever he may be. Where's Chirag? Right here. He's got some utsahan. I see yesterday when we were down on Grand Road, I kept looking around and all I saw was a brand new pair of sneakers in the middle of the road. I didn't even see him. I just see the sneakers and I go like, he's after somebody. And just the enthusiasm that comes from trying to do devotional service, the utsahan. Rupa Goswami says this is a qualification. If Krishna sees you enthusiastic to do something, some service for him, then he enlivens your heart and you make advancement in devotional service, even if you're not very good at it. If you're just enthusiastic to do the service, and you jump in, you try to get some seva, be enthusiastic about it, then naturally your life becomes sublime. You become happy. So if you'll agree to it, it's a democratic process here. No tyranny. We'll have a vote if you'd like to sing the song. Okay, only one person. Oh, it's catching on. The campaign is growing. Okay. Shudha bhakata charanarenu bhajana anukula. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, he had his pastimes in Navadvip, and his counterpart, as we know from the Mangalacharana and the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityānanda Sahoditau. Au means two. It's in the dual. So there's a way in which the two of them appeared, but they didn't come together until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started his Sankirtan movement. He had gone through his pastimes as a child, inducing people even at his birthday appearance day to chant Hare Krishna, because there was an eclipse of the sun and everyone was out chanting, and moon. And then when he was a little baby, he used to get all the village women who would crowd around him, because he's such a beautiful baby, and coddle him, but he would cry until they would chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Then he would just stop. And so that caught on, and they were always chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. In his adolescence, he was known more as a scholar who knew it all and knew that he knew it all, and who was in some ways objectionable, because he was so full of himself, apparently, and his knowledge, that even devotees who saw him coming down the street would sometimes cross the street. Have you ever done that? One guy did that at the bus station. He saw us coming and he kept trying to go around and around until we caught him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would corner people and ask them questions and say, what is the meaning of liberation? He said to Mukunda, and then Mukunda gave a perfectly fine answer, and Nimai said, no, that's not the answer. You don't know anything. And he would go with Nimai with his students, because he became a teacher, obvious teacher, self-effulgent, knew more than even his teachers, and he had a big following. He'd go up and down the Ganges. Even during our time when Prabhupada was here, everyone would go during the Mayapur festival, and they would sit on the bank of the Ganges together, and everyone had their own little group according to which part of the world they were from and who their leader was, and they'd sit in little circles and hear and chant. So back in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, there were groups that were doing that, and he would deliberately go up and pick philosophical fights with people, and then he would tie them in knots philosophically and then walk away, just leave them in a disarray, thinking, oh, now we don't know anything. But then he met his spiritual master in Gaya and surrendered to him and took Diksha, and he came back under the order of his spiritual master, chanting Hare Krishna, and all the Vaishnavas were incredulous, because they had for years been saying, what if he becomes a Vaishnav? Then we really have a movement together, because he's so brilliant and beautiful, but I wish he was a devotee. And he had covered himself with his yoga maya until that time when he came back to Navadvip, and he was obsequious towards the Vaishnavas, bringing them things, asking how he could serve them. And what's more, he was instilled with this sense of separation, so much so that he was asking, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? And Gadadhar, who had accompanied him, one day he had said, oh, he's in your heart, and Nimai then started tearing at his heart, that he wanted to open his heart. He was acting in irrational ways, and when Sachi Devi saw that Gadadhar Pandit was able to pacify him, she said to Gadadhar, you stay with him always and protect him. In fact, there was a time when they thought that he had, what Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, a wind disorder, because the Ayurvedic system talks about the life airs in the body, and that gets translated. He had a wind disorder. Some had offered Sachi, as everyone does, as soon as you get sick, everyone's got some cure for you. They told him he needs Shiva ghee, and someone said you have to bind his feet, don't let him loose, because he was acting mad. And that's what happened when he came back from Gaya. And then, of course, he decided to take sannyas. He was teaching, and some of the students came and they saw him one day in a spiritually altered state where he was calling out the names of the gopis in separation, and they criticized him and said, what are you doing? That's not the way you do that. And in his madness, he had chased after them with a stick, and they were part of a Brahminical caste where they felt great entitlement, so they said, if he ever does this again, we're going to file a lawsuit. And Mahaprabhu then, to catch those who were on the periphery because of that feeling of entitlement, had taken sannyas. Of course, there's many reasons. Mayamrigam dayate ipsita mandavadavad, says Karvajana Muni in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, interpreted by our acharyas. It describes how Mahaprabhu had left home, tyaktva sadusya jasurepshita raja lakshmim, even though everybody's after the goddess of fortune, right? Say yes. Then Mahaprabhu was married to the goddess of fortune, and he just left. And he used an excuse. Dharmishta Arya Vachasa means during the Srivasangam pastimes, a Brahmana tried to get in and they wouldn't let him in. So the next day at the Ganges, when everyone was taking bath, he came up to Nimai and he said, I curse you that you'll never have material happiness. And he broke his Brahman's thread, and Mahaprabhu felt great joy in his heart, because he knew then he could just renounce the material world. Arya Vachasa used that as an excuse, the Brahman's curse. Tadagata Ranyam, to go to the forest, which means take sannyas. And then Mayamrigam Dayate Ipsitam means that several meanings. One is that he would chase after the conditioned souls to give them an opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. And he took sannyas to do that. He had told 5 devotees that he was going to take sannyas. They were incredulous, and some begged him not to do it, especially Nityānanda, who said, what's it going to do to Mother Sachi? And some were a little miffed. And they were all very disappointed, because they're losing their hometown hero and their life and soul. To go off to take sannyas was a big deal. Probably still is. So that day, that evening, Kolavecha had brought a gourd, a bottle gourd that had grown on his roof. You know, those thatch roofs, sometimes things just grow because the seeds get in. He brought it, I'll give it to Mahaprabhu. And then some other fortunate soul not named in the Chaitanya Bhagavat had brought some milk. And Mahaprabhu, knowing he was leaving early in the morning, he gave both of those to Sachi Devi and said, please cook these into a preparation. He wanted to honor them before he left. And around the Brahma Muhurta time, as he was resting, he could feel the air within his nostrils change. The Muhurtas, the body goes through different stages and cycles. So he felt it, that the air had changed in his nostrils, so he got up there in the dark and was about to steal out of the house, but he realized that Sachi was sitting in the doorway. disconsolate. He tried to console her by telling her that he's her property forever, and please forgive me for this. But what could she say? And when he left, then later the devotees, it spread all over Navadvip, and even the people who used to chide the devotees and criticize Mahaprabhu, they came, they started crying too. Everyone was crying when he left for sannyas. Cakravarti was a Mayavadi sannyasi from the Shankar Sampradaya. And actually, as explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he didn't really initiate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because who's going to initiate God? Mahaprabhu and Ploy, he had a dream the night before his sannyas ceremony. And then he came to Cakravarti before the sannyas ceremony. He said, I had a dream last night that you gave me a mantra, my sannyas mantra. And Cakravarti, what was it? And he said, well, I'll whisper it in your ear and you tell me if that's the mantra you had in mind. So Mahaprabhu said the mantra in his ear, actually initiating Cakravarti. So as explained by Vrindavan Das Thakur, Mahaprabhu didn't take sannyas from who can initiate the Lord. He initiated Cakravarti, and then he gave him back the mantra that he had imbued with the sense of a love for Krishna, and not some Mayavadi mantra, Tattvamasi. And so Mahaprabhu then took sannyas, and he wandered for some days in the Radha Desh and ended up at Advaitacharya's house by the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, who was following him and who told the cowherd boys nearby who were herding cows, if this sannyasi asked you the way to Vrindavan, tell him that way instead of the way to Vrindavan. So when Mahaprabhu asked, he said, the cowherd boys said it's that way. And that led back to Shantipur, where we visit, and we find the Ganges used to be right there. And when Mahaprabhu saw the Ganges there, he jumped in because he thought he was in Vrindavan. It was the Jamuna. And then he saw, out of his ecstasy, he was looking up, and then he saw Advaitacharya coming on a boat. And he said, what are you doing in here in Vrindavan? And Advaitacharya said, well, wherever you are, that's Vrindavan. And then Mahaprabhu realized, and he said, Nityananda's tricked me. And Advaitacharya, in a litigious way, so this is where the Jamuna, Saraswati, and the Ganga, on this side, they actually confluence here. So he wasn't really lying, and this is Jamuna. And by the way, why don't you just come to my house, since you're here anyway? And it was at that time when he fed the Lord, and Mother Sachi came there, and Mahaprabhu apologized to her for taking sannyas, said, what should I do now? And she recommended that he take residence here in Jagannath Puri. And so, because she said Jagannath Puri and Navadvip are like two rooms in the same house, because the Gaudiyas live in those places and they come and go, and from there constantly. And so at least they'll have news of you coming. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on his way to Jagannath Puri to follow the order of his mother, he came to this place, and there's a place nearby called Kopateshwar that's in the song that we sing, the Mahaprabhu Shatanam. And of course he went here, there, and everywhere. It's delightful, because if you like this kind of thing that we're doing now and you want to do more of it, it's okay, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did it. And if you spend time going to holy places, you just find that when you go back out into the world, there's always this incredulous sense that people are still doing that. I remember I'd stay 3 months a year for several years in a row and just go to holy places. And I remember once I was in Mayapur for a whole month during those 3 months, and I just walked out and I thought, oh right, there's a world out here. Because you get used to going to all the Vaishnava tirthas, and anywhere you go, you could just live in a guest house for a couple rupees. At least it used to be that way, the dharmshalas. And then they all have prasadam. They just feed you there. If you want to get shaved up, you just walk right at the temple. They just shave everybody up out there. I think they trade it in they make wigs out of it or something. And anyway, it's a whole lifestyle. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went here, there, and everywhere, and he was here on his way to Jagannath Puri, obviously getting pretty close. And while he was visiting this other tirtha, Nityananda Prabhu was entrusted, or I should say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entrusted him with his danda. So he had received a danda, ekadanda. So the Vaishnavas, they're called Tridandi. Danda means a stick, and it also means discipline. And it represents when the sannyasi carries a stick that they've dedicated their life to the discipline of following the Lord. And the Tridandi stands for body, mind, and words, that you've controlled those three. The Ekadandim from the Mayavads means that we're all one. Mahaprabhu, of course, he took sannyas in that sampradaya, the Shankar sampradaya, because his main objective in taking sannyas was to attract people to him so that they would offer their respects and get benefit. While he was absent for a while, Nityananda Prabhu, right in this spot, had broken his danda into 3 pieces. Now, some say that there's 2 reasons. I mean, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura comments on this pastime. He says that Nityananda Prabhu was not happy with Mahaprabhu carrying around a danda. In the sannyas order, there's Kudichak, Bahudak, Parivachakacharya, and Paramahamsa. There's a gradual progression in all of the ashrams for one to become more and more fixed in renunciation and absorption in Krishna consciousness. For instance, the Kudichak, that phase of sannyas in times of antiquity was that the man would live in a separate residence, and then the wife would still cook, but they just bring it by and put it through a little slot. All right? It's all right. Here you go. And after that, he would not take food in that way, but would go out to the fields where people are doing agriculture and pick up what's left over, a little grain, and take that. And after that, the person would wander everywhere without discrimination, called Pari Rajakacharya. Pari means to go here, there, and Rajakacharya means to walk and wander and move. And that it just depends on God wherever you go. And the Paramahamsa stage is the stage when the person becomes fully mature in God consciousness and is fully absorbed in love of God and can sit down in one place or not, but these are the progressive stages. So, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was questioned, as we heard the other day, by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he asked the Gopinath Acharya and the others, what order of sannyas is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? They said, oh, he's in the Bharati Sampradaya. He said, oh, not that great. I could give him an upgrade for that. We talked about that the other day. But after, what I didn't mention was that after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had revealed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya his godhood, he showed his form as Narayan. And then he says, through the pen of Vrindavan Das Thakur in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he said, you still think I need an upgrade in my sannyas? So there's this conundrum about Mahaprabhu. Everybody knew, or at least Nityananda Prabhu was the main promoter of, look, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, others saw him as a sannyasi, but Nityananda Prabhu was dissatisfied with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu carrying around a danda. So he broke it. And part of it is to show that in the 4 orders of sannyas, the Parvajakacharya and the Paramahamsa, they don't carry a danda. They are unencumbered, they don't need to carry it. So why should Mahaprabhu carry a danda anyway? He's beyond a Paramahamsa. And then the 3 pieces also indicate it should have been a Tridandi, not an Ekadandi. In any case, Nityananda threw it in the river. He just snapped it, 3 pieces, threw in the river. When Mahaprabhu came back, said, "Where's my danda?" He said, "Oh, yeah, that." Well, here's what happened. You see, you were in ecstasy and dancing, and then you fainted in ecstasy, and I caught you, and then we both fell in the danda. It broke in 3 pieces, and I just threw it in the river. So, and then some acharyas say, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityānanda, they're the same person, actually. Vedanti tat tattva vidas. The Lord's one, Advaita tattva, but he has these pastimes. And Nityananda Prabhu is his servant. And he's Akhanda Guru Tattva. He's the representative of all the gurus. And so there's a way in which Nityananda Prabhu accompanies Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, in Navadvip, when Mahaprabhu had started the Sankirtan movement, that's when Nityananda Prabhu had been on pilgrimage. He had left home. He left his parents because a sannyasi showed up at the house of Hadai Pandit and Padmavati, and just before he left, if you've ever had a sannyasi over, and just before he left, he said, "Well, anything we can do for you?" He's like, yeah, well, one little thing. And what's that? Say, "I need an assistant." And so it was typical that, a son, an adolescent, they'd just give him to the sannyasi, and he'll take him on pilgrimage everywhere, and he'll assist the sannyasi, and ostensibly he'd be trained. Even Prabhupada, during his time, he asked a lot of respectable Hindu families, just give me one of your sons, I'll train him up. Would have been nice, right? Who knows where that devotee would be now if they had, but nobody gave. Everyone was like, "Nah, I don't think so." So he asked, did the sannyasi, and Hadai Pran said, Hadai Pran? His father said, oh. And then he consulted with Padmavati, and they remembered together how Viśvānātha had come and said, "Yeah, just a little something. I want your son Ram," and Lakshman went with him, and his father Dasarath had hesitated, and then Vasishtha, his guru, said, "Don't hesitate. First of all, you don't want to mess with Viśvānātha, and second of all," he said, "don't worry. Your son is actually God, so it's going to be okay." So Nityananda's father capitulated, and then as Nityananda went off into the great unknown with this sannyasi, he did his father in like a painted picture, and he didn't eat after that. He was in separation. He couldn't think of anything else except for his son. And finally he died, much like Dasarath. He died in separation from his son. And Nityananda had learned much, gone to all the holy places, and then years later he was there in Vrindavan. And he was noticing that the temple seemed vacant. And then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, miles and miles away, of course, in Navadvip, had started the Sankirtan movement, Nityananda Prabhu, who is his counterpart, had let out a yell, a cry that people had to cover their ears. It went all over the universe. He had been waiting for that moment to rejoin Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Monday, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito, Gaudadai Pushpavanto Chitrashanto Tamondada. And meanwhile, back in Navadvip, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a dream, and he told all his followers about it. He said, I dreamed a great personality had come here in a chariot with the insignia of a palm tree on his chariot. And he kept asking, where is Nimai Pandit? Where is Nimai Pandit? Where is Nimai Pandit? And then he knew Nityananda was coming. Of course, he knew anyway, but he told everybody, this great personality's coming. And when Nitai came, he hid in the house of Nandanacharya, which is still there near the Ganges. It's always just such a charming pastime. The Lord comes and then he hides in the house of Nandanacharya. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, he's come. And they said, really, who's he? He said, the great personality I was telling you about. He said, go find him. And they all went out, and they went everywhere, all the neighborhoods, they checked all the streets, all the shops, everywhere. They came back, nowhere. Mahaprabhu, I'll show you where he is. He took him to Nandanacharya's house, and there was Nityananda Prabhu sitting in meditation, radiant like the sun. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he had embraced. It's in the Nityanandashtakam, how they looked into each other's eyes, although they're the same person. And then he had performed the Guru Puja. And Nityananda Prabhu was an avaduta when he was receiving the garland of worship. He put it on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instead. And that was his mode of service. He was bringing to light the godhood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and revealing it to the world. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Sankirtan had told the devotees to go out and door to door and tell people, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koto Krishna Shik, Nityananda Prabhu went and said, chant Gauranga, chant the name of Gauranga, and he revealed to all the devotees that, no, that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gauranga, for this age. And of course, you know from Chaitanya Bhagavat that Sachimata had a dream herself, and she had Krishna Balaram deities. But then she dreamed that Nitai and Gora were fighting with the Krishna Balaram in her dream. And Nityananda was saying to Balaram, said, this is our age, Kali Yuga. And all these sweets you're getting, these are ours. And if you don't hand them over, then maybe by beating. And she told this, it's an odd dream I had. Nitai and Gora were fighting with my Krishna Balaram deities, and Mahaprabhu just commented, these are some very powerful deities you have, Mom. So when Nityananda came there, then of course they came together to this place, and that's when he broke the danda. And in this way of, which is common throughout his pastimes, Mahaprabhu is trying to follow the external process of sannyas and be very strict, and all his devotees are constantly pushing him to take more comfort, and he's pushing back. Damodar, one of his eternal associates, tried to make him a bed. Mahaprabhu would sleep on the hard ground, but he tried to make him a bed. And Mahaprabhu became angry, and so they disguised the bed as something else. But they were always pushing him to try to take something, because that's their great pleasure, to see the Lord enjoy, but it was really hard when he was a sannyasi. So after breaking the danda, throwing in the river, there was a slight argument. Mahaprabhu said, that was my only possession. I'm a sannyasi. All I had was that danda. And Nityananda, you broke it. And you threw it in the river. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta comments that it's curiosity that although Mahaprabhu feigned anger, actually he was very pleased, because he was revealing, was Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't need a danda. Meanwhile, there's this tension because he's following the external process of a sannyasi. Then of course, the result of that was that Mahaprabhu claimed that his devotees who were following him were annoying him and distracting him from his bhajan. So he said, you can't come with me to Jagannath Puri. You can go in front or back, but I'm going alone. Have you ever had that when you're traveling with somebody? It's where you find out how close you are with people you travel. I just don't want to see you. I mean, I'll meet you there, but we're not together anymore. Mahaprabhu was in that mood, and he just said, I'm going to go on by myself. I don't want anybody with me. He was disturbed that his danda had been broken, apparently. But he wasn't actually. He was pleased. That's the dichotomy. And that comes up in various places, like when they were cleaning Mahaprabhu and his associates, the Gudicha temple, and a Bengali Vaishnava had washed his feet in the temple and taken the water. Mahaprabhu also feigned anger and had him, Swarup Damodar said, he's your guy, get him out of here. And he ejected him from the temple. Mahaprabhu there, he's also observing the external feature, but he was pleased. And when Kalidas had also taken Mahaprabhu's Charnamrit from in front of the temple, then he allowed him. But then he said, okay, that's enough. No more of this. So, such are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and this place is so serene. The beautiful air that comes off the river here is infused with these loving pastimes of Lord Nityānanda, Lord Chaitanya and his associates, and the great angst Mahaprabhu had to go to Jagannath Puri. And let's see if you have any reflections or questions from the Dandabhanga pastime. Yes? Okay. We'll sing the Nityananda Ashtakam. 196. Vajanityanandam Vajanadharukandam Tadagatim. Page 196. And the translation goes like this. I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna bhakti tree, whose bright face mocks the full autumn moon, whose pure complexion glistens, whose gait is like that of a maddened elephant, who is always intoxicated in Krishna prema, who embodies pure spiritual energy, whose face holds a gentle smile, whose eyes are always rolling due to his absorption in Krishna prema, whose lotus hand holds a glowing staff, and who by the performance of Nam Sankirtan pierces the influence of Kali Yuga. I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who is the mainstay of all the rasas, who is everything to his devotees, who is beyond compare, who is the master of both Vasudha and Janav. Excuse me. Who consider him more dear than their own lives. You could read with me if you wish. Who is always maddened in Krishna prema, and who is unknown only to those of meager intelligence. I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who is very dear to Sri Sachinandana, who is worshipped by the entire universe, who is the embodiment of happiness, who possesses infinite mercy for delivering the souls who are drowning in the age of Kali, and who by the performance of Sri Harinam Sankirtan thwarts the progressing false pride of the ocean of repeated birth and death. I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who said to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, "Hey, brother Gauranga, what will be the destination of the sinful souls of Kali Yuga, and how will they be redeemed? Please devise a method by which they will easily attain you." I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who wandered around Bengal and approaching the door of each and every home, raised his arms up high and exclaimed, "O brothers, all of you should eternally perform Sri Harinam Sankirtan together. By doing so, I will take the responsibility to deliver you all from the ocean of material existence. I eternally worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who is the Agastya Muni who forcibly swallows the ocean of repeated birth and death, who is a rising full moon which increases the ocean of the saintly person's welfare, and who is the sun which dissipates the darkness of ignorance cast by the various classes of miscreants. I eternally worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who wandered on every path in Bengal, dancing, singing, and calling out, Haribo, Haribo, and who lovingly bestowed merciful sidelong glances upon those who were not compassionate, even to their own selves. I perpetually worship Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the root of the Krishna Bhakti tree, who held supremely soft lotus hand of his brother Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, whose heart became filled with the highest bliss when the two brothers gazed into each other's faces, and who wandered here and there, delighting the townspeople with their sweetness. May Sri Nityananda Prabhu place his lotus feet in the heart of one who lovingly recites this unprecedented Nityananda Ashtaka, which is the reservoir of Ras, greatest treasure of the most exalted Rasika Vaishnavas and the storehouse of the essence of Bhakti. Any reflections or questions you want to entertain? Oh, good. Malini.
Prabhuji, in this place, there is something that we can pray for. If you can please elaborate on that.
Pray for Lord Nityānanda to break any of your anarthas, attachments to unnecessary things. That's a pretty bold prayer. Please break them, throw them in the river. And then say, I don't know what happened. Lord Nityānanda is a adoṣa-darśī. He's one that we can approach because he doesn't see anybody's faults. This is mentioned by Viśvanātha Cakravarti Ṭhākura in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. He gives an elaborate commentary about the qualities of various levels of people. And some people, they are very expert at finding faults. Even when there is no fault, they can find a fault. And then there are some people on the highest level, even when there is no good quality, they find something. They elevate it and they say, and that's part of the declaration by Uddhava when he says, who would take shelter of anybody else except Krishna because of what he did for Pūtanā? He said, why would you go to anybody else? Because Krishna was, somehow he found a good quality in Pūtanā. And Nityananda Prabhu, it's called adoṣa-darśī. He just doesn't see any faults. And he's also the epitome of audarya. In Vrindavan, there's madhurya. It's just sweetness. Sweet and sweet and sweet. Madhuram, madhuram. Madhuram, madhuram, madhuram. There's lots of songs talking about the sweetness of Vrindavan, the sweetness of Krishna. But then when you get into the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityānanda, it's the same madhuram, only you have the container that filled up so high and it overflows. And it goes out to everybody. And you see that in the Sankirtan, that people are just absorbed in their worldly activities, and you hear the Harinam, and then they just get an ecstasy and they get carried away. So we can ask Lord Nityānanda overlook our faults and just sweep us away in that inundation. That's kind of nice. Because as a proclamation, it's a declaration also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that patran va apatra nahe. They didn't consider where was a good place or where wasn't a good place. That's the sound that it makes when he washes you away. Washes away any of your anarthas. Also, it's always very positive to pray for empowerment, for spreading the Sankirtan movement. I was thinking about that yesterday standing under the Siddhabakul tree, of how enthusing it is to ask to be engaged. Because really the methodology of Haridas Thakur and what I consider to be the most effective way of renunciation is to always have somewhere better to be. You know, like when someone invites you to something you don't want to go to, and you feel lucky that you already have another engagement, so you don't have to make anything up. You say, yeah, I'm booked. It's right here on my calendar. And if you ask Lord Nityānanda to empower you and all, like Haridas Thakur, when the prostitute came, he said, yeah, sure, why not? But I got to finish my rounds. And little did she know, those never ended. So if we can ask Lord Nityānanda to engage us like that in the Sankirtan movement, our life goes by like that, isn't it? You look up at intervals, like every 10, 20 years, and you go like, wait, what happened? How come all the kids grew up and now they're, leaders and in college, and now how come we look different? It's because we didn't even notice that we're being washed away by the Sankirtan movement. It's such a positive movement, and Lord Nityānanda can just absorb us in that. Let us be empowered to do something wonderful like Prabhupada did and wanted us to do. And it keeps us on such a steady pace and out of, beyond arm's length of Maya. Because we're too busy. Yeah, no. Happy to, but I'm busy. How busy are you? Well, this lifetime's already booked. So you could try somebody else, but I'm too busy. I got to do my duty. Those are a few thoughts. Other reflections, questions about Danda Bhangama Nadi or anything else? Just crossing the river is such a nice metaphor in Ram Lila. When Lord Ramachandra is just leaving Ayodhya, all the citizens want to go with him. They're hanging on to the chariot and they're going, and when they get there to the outskirts of town, they meet Guha, and Guha is an old friend of Dasarath and therefore Ram also. When they're leaving, they get a ride across by a boatman, and on that boat, Sita, Ram, Lakshman are being comported across the river so they can then head out to the wilderness and really take the exile to heart. They didn't want to do an artificial show and bring everybody with them. They all wanted to come and serve him in the forest and stuff, not like that. So on the boat, when they were coming to the other side of the river, Sarayu, then they were going to give the boatman something, Sita's ring. You give this the only payment we have. We left everything behind. And the boatman said, I can't take any payment for it from you. Because in the Vedic culture, there's a system that if you're in the same profession, you don't pay the other person. Like if you go to get your hair cut somewhere, right, from a barber and you're a barber, it's free. Barbers cut each other's hair. So the boatman said, I can't take any payment from you because we're in the same business. And Ram looked a little curious about that, and he said, same business? I'm an exiled prince. You're a boatman? Excuse me? And the boatman said, no, actually, when it comes to the end of my life, I'm asking you to be my boatman to comport me across the ocean of material existence. And that's what you do for all living entities. Sakradeva prapanoyas tavasmi tayachate. Abhayam sarvada tasmai tadamyaham tadami etad ritam mama. He gives this vow that if one time somebody says, my Lord, I surrender to you, if you can find that one japa period where you just say, that's it, I'm giving up everything to you, I surrender. If you can find your own sincerity, your life will be perfect. Because he says, sakrit, even one time somebody has that emotion, that it is my vow, that from that time on I'll give that person shelter and protect them. So rivers are so mystical like that, and also you can't see it, but there's a boat down here just sitting there. It reminds me in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes also, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, during his Mahaprakash, when Mahaprabhu had revealed to everyone finally, he was open about it, that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He came to Srivasa's house. Srivasa was doing his puja, and Mahaprabhu was banging on the door, open up, I am he, I am he. And Srivasa became nervous that Mahaprabhu was there demanding to come in. And when he came in, he was in a totally different mood than the humble, as I used the word, obsequious mood he had been in before. And he came and sat down on the altar of Vishnu and demanded worship like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And during those 21 hours, 24 hours, 21 hours, it's called the Mahaprakash, where he stayed there, and devotees then did Abhishek. He told Srivas Pandit, he said, sing that bathing song. And then Vrindavan Das Thakur, and Srivas knew the Purush Sukta, so he was singing the Purush Sukta, and Vrindavan Das Thakur says, although the Vaishnavas, they just chant Hare Krishna, they know all the other mantras too. Don't think they don't. And so he was taking that worship, and then they were bringing him all kinds of food stuff. He was eating everything, bring more bananas, 10,000 bananas. He was eating everything. And then he wanted to give benedictions to all the devotees, because that's what Bhagavan does. He gives benedictions. So each one of the devotees were coming forward, and he said, what benediction can I give you? And say, oh, my brother-in-law is addicted to whatever, please cure him, and so forth. And Mahaprabhu was revealing at that time the intimate secrets of his devotees, because little did they know, because they were covered by Yoga Maya, they didn't recognize who he was in their lives. And he would remind them, remember that time. And in the case of Gangadas at one time had been traveling with his family, and they had gotten lost, and then they were in a very dangerous part of town, and he was with his children, and they were being pursued, and when they came to the bank of the Ganga, there were no boats, and he was considering that maybe we should drown ourselves, because better that we drown ourselves rather than I see my family molested by these dacoits that were chasing them and killed by them here unceremoniously. So he was thinking that, and just as it came into his mind that this is the right thing to do, a boat came, and he got in the boat and said, please take us across the river. And when Gangadas came to the Mahaprakash, he was one of the intimate devotees to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu, from that position, he said, do you remember the time when you were being chased and you were afraid of your family being molested and you thought of killing yourself by jumping in the Ganges? I was the boatman. I came there. I took you across the river, and I'll take you across the ocean of material existence. And Gangadas couldn't contain himself. He just totally broke down. I imagine in that situation when you realize what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that I'm there within your heart. I know exactly what you want. I know exactly what's good for you, and I'm your ever well-wisher. And that's why when devotees would meet Prabhupada, he had no ulterior motive, and they would feel that. And some devotees would just melt and become emotional, because it's the first time you meet somebody who doesn't want something from you that's tit for tat. They just want to do good for you. And Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityānanda are like that. They just want to do good. They're adoṣa-darśī. And so this is the river. We're in the midst of the ocean of material existence, which is insurmountable, but by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityānanda, anyone can cross that river. We'll take one or two more. Yes. 1, 2.
Just a brief comment about different modes of transportation. The buses at the bus stand, the freight train now. There was an ambulance a while ago, and then you mentioned about the boat, and we have Acharya. So it's just, and then knowing that what sannyas really means. Just this evening, last evening, I was having a conversation. This morning, Viśvanātha Prabhu mentioned the verse about the boat and the captain and crossing the ocean. So it was just all coming all together, that we can choose to take so many modes of transportation, but we are all sitting here understanding about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes of sannyas, and how when he did that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so sweetly supported by Lord Nityānanda. So thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, I love it. It's really nice. And remembering that metaphor, that's given by Kṛṣṇa. He gives that example to Uddhava, right? There's 2 verses that are very same. Labvam Sadur Labvam. I think that's the Avanti Brahmana. Not the Avanti Brahmana, the Avadhuta Brahmana. And then the other one, Rideham Adyam Sulabam Sadulabam Pravam Sukalpam Guru Karnadaram. That's the one Kṛṣṇa says that the material world's an ocean, and if you want to cross it, the human body's a boat. Rideham Adyam Sulabam Sadulabam. It's very difficult to get this human form of body. If you get it, then Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadaram, then it's a boat, but you're going to need a captain. Otherwise, good luck going out into the ocean as a novice. You're going to get creamed and drown. So get yourself that. And then Mayana Kulin and the Basvataritam, he says, you need favorable breezes. And those come from the Shastras and the instructions of the sadhus. And if you get all those, then you can easily fly across the ocean of material world. Nicely done. Okay, Sundarananda Prabhu. He's got his trademark smile, so we know he's got something good.
As you were speaking about how, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Nityānanda, I just recollected this song, which is the Boro Sukher Bor Gai by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he sings about the mercy of Lord Nityānanda and how he has opened the marketplace of pure holy name, and he is distributing it freely. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, come with me, and let's meet, Lord Nityānanda and get the pure holy name from him. Then he also says, and I'll also take my commission.
It's an enterprise, right? I was thinking that yesterday when we were all out on the street, and especially because there was such a fervor when the Bhagavad Gita got visible out there, the Bhagavad Gita in Ariyan, it's called Arisan? Oriya. In Oriya, people were uncharacteristically, it was a big demand. It came up fast, and people were coming over. I was like, where's that Oriya Gita? I want the Oriya Gita. I want the Gita. We'd hand them a small book, and they go, no, the other one. And then we were haggling with people because different prices were coming up. Oh yeah, he got it for 200. I want mine for 200. So there were 5 times these 2 policemen went back and forth to negotiate with their boss about what his boss was going to pay us for the Bhagavad Gita. And I was thinking how it's a marketplace, and it's so fun. The marketplace. I mean, you don't want to just sit around and meditate on a mountaintop or something like that. You want something to do. And to be able to, Prabhupada said yoga means plus. You want to add something to people's lives. And to be able to hand somebody a transcendental literature, then what to speak of walk away and you see him sitting on the sidewalk just reading it. We sold a book to this Muslim guy just at the bus station. As soon as we approached him, he whispered he said he's Muslim, And so I said, Salam alaikum, alaikum salam, madhava kifelaka, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. And then he was suddenly okay. And somehow his heart softened and he gave a donation. And then instead of giving him the book first, we gave him it after he gave the donation, for reasons I won't go into. And then as we were walking around and Sudhira looked back, he went right to the pictures. And I was just thinking, what kind of havoc do we create in the society by dropping, as Prabhupada said, like he used the military, dropping bombs everywhere. And it's such a joyful process. At the same time, it gives us something very proactive to do. That's such a nice point you brought up about the marketplace. And you get commission too. It's the original Amway program. You load up your house with books, front end load, and get a bunch of people to come over, Tupperware. This really works. You were going to say.
We also wanted to share that yesterday's experience with the police. We initially put the table right in front of the police station, and we were trying to move the table in the front where the Harinam was. And this police guy, he came and he said, you cannot set up a table here. Because apparently previously somebody posted in the newspaper that Hare Krishnas are chanting in front of the police station. So he just thought it's not a good PR for them. So then we said, sure, no problem. We will move the table to the back and we'll just put it as a stand. We will cover it with a cloth, so it's not like a display. And then he kept saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. And he's asking, how much is the Bhagavad Gita? Not only that, all the police people, they came down and everybody got a book and they were taking. And that guy keeps saying, no, you cannot do this. And he said, I want another one for my friend. He had 3 Bhagavad Gitas in hand and he paid the money for that. And he said, you can't do this here.
He also said, Guru Maharaj, that this is social media, this big problem. If we are seen with this book or this situation, then it will be a problem. And then after that, he took the
3 books in the hand.
Meanwhile, it's being live streamed on Facebook. Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam. Will we have time to sing Nadia Godrume?
Nadia Godrume Nitai Neche Ne. Nadia Godrume? Nadia Godrume Nityānanda Mahajan Pratayati Nam Hata Jivira Shadavan Jan He Shadavan Jan He Pravagnai Gyai Magiye Pika Bolo Krishna Bhajo Krishna Kodo Krishna Shika Aparada Shunya Hoya Loya Krishna Nam Jive Krishna Mata Krishna Pita Krishna Dana Pran Jive Doi Krishna Nam Sarva Dharma Sar Nadia Gudrume Nityānanda Mahajan Nadia Gudrume Nit. Sorry, it's hard to get away from that tune. 175 is a beautiful song. In the land of Nadia, on the island of Godruma, the magnanimous Lord Nityānanda has opened up a marketplace of the holy name, meant for the deliverance of all fallen souls. O people of faith, by the order of Lord Gauranga, O brothers, I beg these 3 requests of you. Chant Krishna, worship Krishna. Being careful to remain free of offenses, just take the holy name of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Is your mother. Krishna is your father. Krishna is the treasure of your life. Giving up all sinful activities, carry on your worldly duties only in relation to Lord Kṛṣṇa. The showing of compassion to other souls by loudly chanting the holy name of Krishna is the essence of all forms of religion.